Welcome to our deep dive on visual snow syndrome, or VSS for short.
Yeah.
You know, you might actually know someone with this condition.
You really might.
It's more common than you think.
Yeah?
About 2% of the population is affected.
Wow.
But a lot of people may not even realize they have it.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine seeing static on an old TV, but like, it's everywhere you look.
Yeah.
All the time.
Oh.
That's the reality for people with VSS.
Right. We've got a really interesting collection of sources here.
They do.
Scientific papers, patient accounts, clinical reviews.
A lot to dive into.
And today we're going to unpack the most, I think, intriguing and relevant facts about this condition.
Okay.
To give you, the listener, a solid understanding of VSS and what researchers are learning about it.
Oh, good.
So, looking at these sources, some questions that immediately jump out.
Yeah.
Is VSS related to migraine?
Good question.
Are there any effective treatments?
Even better question.
And what causes it in the first place?
Ooh, yeah. So
let's get into it.
let's start with just defining what VSS is
Okay.
officially.
Officially.
Yeah.
It's a primary neurological disorder
Mm.
characterized by continuous, like always there,
Wow.
pan-field visual disturbances
Hmm.
described as small flickering dots.
Yeah, like that static kind of thing.
Exactly. And these dots can be black and white or transparent or even colored.
Oh, wow.
So it can vary.
Okay, so it's constant, and it affects like your whole vision.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds,
Your entire field of vision.
yeah, pretty debilitating.
It can be, yeah.
So it's not just this like snow,
Yeah.
you know, like we were describing.
The static, it's not just the snow.
Yeah.
It often involves additional visual symptoms as well.
Okay.
Things like seeing after images, which is called palinopsia.
Yeah.
Something called enhanced entoptic phenomena,
Okay.
which is basically like an increased awareness of the stuff that's already in your eye.
Oh, like the floaters and stuff like that?
Exactly, yeah. Floaters, those little things you see sometimes.
Yeah.
And even sensitivity to light
Oh.
or difficulty seeing in low light, which is called nyctalopia.
Oh, wow. So it's really like a
It
whole.
really is a syndrome,
Yeah.
a collection of symptoms,
Yeah.
not just a simple visual disturbance.
Okay, so we want to make that distinction too.
Right.
That it is different from a migraine aura.
Yes. Although there can be some overlap.
Yeah.
But VSS is its own distinct condition.
Okay, that's important to know.
Yes.
Now, you mentioned that it's more common than people think.
Yeah, it really is. A study in the UK actually found that it affects around 2% of the population.
Wow.
That's millions of people worldwide.
Yeah, that's surprising.
It is.
And it often starts early in life.
It does.
So someone could be living with this for years
Yeah.
and not
so-
even know what it is.
Exactly.
Wow.
And think about the impact on just, daily life,
Yeah.
focusing at work or school,
Yeah.
driving, reading.
All these things become a lot more difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
It's pretty impactful,
yeah, it is.
for sure.
So I want to get into what it's actually like to experience VSS.
Okay, yeah.
So,
It's tough to replicate,
yeah.
but researchers have tried to simulate visual snow in the lab
Okay.
using, these random distributions of luminance
Yeah.
to create those flickering dots.
So they're trying to recreate that.
Yeah, basically trying to create a layer of constantly moving static
Yeah.
on top of a normal image.
Wow.
That's kind of what it's like.
Okay.
And to understand the experience even better,
Yeah.
researchers are using these really detailed diaries where
Okay.
patients will track characteristics of their snow,
Okay.
like how dense are the dots, how fast are they flickering,
Right.
and how it changes depending on what surface they're looking at
Oh.
or the lighting conditions.
So it can change.
Yeah, it's not always the same.
Wow.
It can vary. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Okay.
And one study even found that people who see black and white visual snow
Okay.
actually did better on a cognitive test.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was the Stroop test
Okay.
than those with other colors of visual snow.
Huh.
So that suggests that there are variations in how the brain is processing this.
Okay. So it's not just what you're seeing,
Right.
but it's how your brain.
It's how your brain is interpreting it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. So we've talked about how it looks.
Yeah.
We've talked about how it could be different for different people.
Mhm.
Now, remember we mentioned migraine
Right.
being a frequent comorbidity.
Yeah, we did.
So studies show that anywhere from 48.8 to 73% of VSS patients,
Wow, that's a big range.
yeah, it is,
It is a big range.
also have migraine.
Also have migraine. Yeah.
So there's
there's definitely a link there.
A strong link.
Strong link between the two,
Yeah.
for sure.
Is there any reason why?
I mean, researchers aren't totally sure,
Okay.
but they believe that both VSS and migraine could involve
Okay.
similar disruptions in brain processing.
So, like, it could be the same
Could be, yeah.
things that's caused.
Especially in areas that are related to, like, sensory perception.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So is there anything else that researchers are looking at
Yes.
as potential causes?
Yeah, there are a few other interesting areas of research.
Okay.
One is the connection with tinnitus,
Okay.
which is a ringing in the ears.
Mm-hmm.
And studies actually show that tinnitus is even more common in VSS patients
Really?
than migraine.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
With one study finding a prevalence of like 75%.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Wow.
And then other potential triggers that are being investigated include hallucinogen persisting perception disorder,
Okay.
or HPPD,
Right.
especially after using drugs like LSD or cannabis.
Okay. So there are potential, like, long-term
Yeah.
consequences.
There can be long-term consequences of drug use
Yeah.
that people should be aware of.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's not just drugs.
Okay.
Traumatic brain injury,
Mm-hmm.
especially cases that involve post-concussion symptoms and persistent headaches.
Okay.
That's also been linked to VSS.
Wow.
Even infections,
Okay.
certain systemic illnesses,
Mm-hmm.
and psychiatric conditions like anxiety and depression are being investigated.
Wow. So it's like a really complex...
It's a really complex web of potential causes
Yeah.
and contributing factors.
Wow. So to, like, understand what's actually happening
Yeah.
in the brain.
In the brain. Scientists are using brain imaging.
Right.
Yeah, like they're trying to see what's going on.
Yeah.
So they use techniques like PT scans
Okay.
to see how the brain is functioning.
Okay.
And one study found that VSS patients had increased activity,
Okay.
which is called hypermetabolism, in the right lingual gyrus,
Okay.
which is a part of the brain that's involved in visual processing.
Okay, so that area of the brain.
That area.
The right lingual gyrus.
The right lingual gyrus
Seems
seems to be playing a significant role.
Yeah.
Yeah,
In VSS.
for sure.
Okay. So
And then they also use fMRI,
Okay.
which shows brain activity by detecting changes in blood flow.
Okay.
And this helps them look at how different brain regions communicate with each other.
Okay.
And studies have shown that in people with VSS, that communication between different parts of the visual network
Okay.
is disrupted.
So like the way that different parts of the brain
Yeah, it's like
talk to each other.
they're not talking to each other
They're different.
in the same way.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then there's another technique called voxel-based morphometry, or
Hmm.
VBM.
Okay.
And this technique analyzes brain structure to
Mhm.
see if certain regions are like larger or smaller
Okay.
in people with VSS.
And what have they found using this?
So interestingly,
Hmm.
some VBM studies have found increased gray matter volume
Cool.
in the lingual gyrus.
So that same area.
That same area, yeah,
Ooh, that's one-
suggesting that this region might be physically different.
Different.
Yeah,
Wow.
in people with VSS.
Okay.
And this finding, along with the hypermetabolism that we saw in the PT scans,
Hmm.
really suggests that the right lingual gyrus is a key area
Okay.
to focus on for
Yeah.
potential treatments.
Okay. This is all incredibly complex,
It is.
but also fascinating.
Yeah, it's
So-
a lot going on.
Yeah. What does this mean for treatment?
That's the big question.
Can we fix these, like disruptions and structural differences?
That's a complex answer.
Okay.
Unfortunately, there's no cure for VSS yet,
Okay.
and treatment options are limited.
Hmm.
But there have been some medication trials,
But-
but the results have been mixed
Okay.
at best.
Yeah.
Most common drug classes haven't really shown much benefit. Some studies suggest that benzodiazepines,
Huh?
which are often used for anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
might offer some relief.
Okay.
But, more research is definitely needed.
So medication isn't a guaranteed solution.
No.
Are there any other options being explored?
Yes, there are a few non-pharmacological approaches.
Okay. Like what?
Colorimetry assessment,
Okay.
which basically uses tinted lenses,
Okay.
has shown some promise for some patients in reducing their symptoms.
Oh, so simply like changing the color of the light
Yeah,
entering the eye?
it could make a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow, that's interesting.
yeah.
Okay, so
And there's also cognitive behavioral therapy,
okay, CBT.
CBT, yeah.
Okay.
It's a type of talk therapy
Yeah.
that helps people change negative thought patterns and behaviors.
Right.
And there's a specific type of CBT that's been adapted for tinnitus.
Okay.
And since tinnitus and VSS often occur together,
Right.
researchers are hopeful that this approach could also benefit VSS patients.
Okay, so that's more about managing like
It's more about managing the mental and emotional
yeah.
aspects
Yeah, of these conditions.
Exactly.
Right.
And there's some exciting news from a recent study
Tell me.
that explored mindfulness-based cognitive therapy,
Okay.
specifically tailored for visual symptoms to
Okay.
treat VSS.
Interesting.
They call it MBCT vision.
MBCT vision.
Yeah, it's kind of a mouthful,
Catchy.
but it showed real potential in reducing symptom severity
Okay.
and improving well-being for VSS patients.
That's great news.
It is.
That sounds like a much gentler approach.
It is a much gentler approach compared to like, medication or more invasive procedures.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so it's definitely a promising avenue.
Okay.
Now let's circle back to those brain imaging studies for a second.
Okay.
Because one study combined PE scans and VBM
Right.
to analyze both brain activity and structure.
Okay.
And what they found was that VSS patients had both increased activity
Okay.
and increased volume.
So not only is it working harder.
Yeah, not only is it working harder,
Yeah.
it's also physically bigger
Wow.
in the right lingual gyrus.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that really reinforces its crucial role in the condition.
Like that area is like working overtime.
Yeah, it's like it's working overtime and potentially growing in response to this constant visual snow.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so it's really interesting.
Yeah.
So,
So does that give like researchers any ideas for treatment?
well, it does. There's a
Yeah.
growing field called neuromodulation.
Neuromodulation.
Yeah, it's a big word.
Yeah.
But basically it uses techniques like transcranial magnetic stimulation
Okay.
or TMS
Okay.
and transcranial direct current stimulation or TDCS
Yep.
to influence brain activity.
So no surgery.
No surgery involved. It's
Okay.
non-invasive.
That's good.
So TMS uses targeted magnetic impulses,
Okay.
while TDCS uses electrical impulses
Okay.
to modulate specific brain regions.
Okay.
And some early research suggests that TMS might be helpful
Okay.
in reducing tinnitus symptoms.
Okay.
So researchers are hopeful that it could be effective for VSS as well.
Oh, that's a really hopeful
It
development.
is.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Okay.
And this is precisely why understanding those brain mechanisms
Yeah.
is so important
Right.
because it allows for exploring these, targeted treatment options
Yeah.
that were unthinkable before.
Absolutely. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift gears for a second
Okay.
and talk about those patient diaries.
Oh,
What are researchers learning from those?
from those diaries,
Yeah.
they're gaining these really valuable insights
Yeah.
into the subjective experience of VSS.
Okay.
So patients will meticulously record,
Mm-hmm.
how the characteristics of their visual snow change throughout the day
Okay.
and in different situations.
Right.
And they'll rate the severity and how much it's impacting their lives.
Yeah.
So it really helps researchers understand
Okay.
like the spectrum of experiences.
Yeah.
Because some people have really mild symptoms
Mhm.
while others have, debilitating visual snow
Yeah.
that really impacts their daily functioning.
So it's a really powerful tool
It is, yeah.
for both research and like,
And for personalized treatment.
Yeah.
Because,
yeah, because you can see like, okay, what makes it worse? What makes it better?
exactly. Yeah. And it's revealing some interesting patterns.
Oh, like what?
For instance, a lot of patients report that their symptoms worsen under fluorescent lighting
Oh,
or when they're looking at screens.
okay, so like environmental factors can play a role.
Environmental factors definitely play a role.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that must be helpful for patients to know.
It is, yeah.
Like, okay.
Because it allows them to modify their environment and minimize those triggers,
Yeah.
which gives them a sense of control
Right. Yeah. That's important
over their condition.
for any chronic illness.
Yeah, for any chronic illness, for sure.
So shifting gears a little bit,
Okay.
what helps people with VSS
Right.
like cope and maintain a good quality of life?
That's a really important question.
Yeah, it is.
And I would say that support groups,
Okay.
both online and in person,
Mm.
are invaluable for a lot of VSS patients because it allows them to connect with others
Yeah.
who understand their struggles,
Right.
share coping strategies,
Yep.
and find a sense of community,
Yeah, that makes sense.
which can make a huge difference.
Yeah, just not feeling alone.
Yeah, not feeling alone.
Yeah.
And the Visual Snow Initiative,
Okay.
for example, is
Yeah.
doing some incredible work
Okay.
in supporting patients, connecting researchers, and pushing for a deeper understanding of VSS.
Yeah, their work is really crucial.
It is, yeah.
So what are some specific coping mechanisms that patients are using to manage their symptoms?
A common strategy is focusing on what they can control.
Okay.
So, for example,
Yeah.
if certain lighting conditions worsen their symptoms,
Yeah.
they might adjust their environment.
Right.
Taking regular breaks from screens,
Okay.
adjusting brightness and contrast settings, using blue light filtering glasses.
Those are all good things for anyone
Yeah.
to be doing,
Yeah.
even without VSS.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
about finding what works best
Yeah.
for each individual.
Mhm.
Some people find relief through relaxation techniques, like
Okay.
meditation or deep breathing exercises.
Right.
Others benefit from gentle exercise
Yeah.
or spending time in nature.
So it's all about incorporating those self-care practices
Yeah.
to kind of manage the stress and anxiety
Exactly.
that often comes with VSS.
Yes, and it's also okay to seek professional help. Talking to a therapist
Yeah.
can be incredibly beneficial
Absolutely.
for coping with the emotional and psychological challenges of a chronic condition.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Oh,
And speaking of treatment,
yeah.
are there any new developments on the horizon?
There are.
Oh. Yeah.
Research on neuromodulation suggests that these techniques might not only reduce symptoms,
Okay.
but could actually lead to lasting changes
Wow.
in brain activity.
So rewiring the brain to address the root cause.
That's the exciting possibility.
Wow.
Yeah, it's still early,
Mm-hmm.
but the potential is immense.
Yeah.
Another intriguing area of research is the role of the gut microbiome.
The gut microbiome.
The gut microbiome,
How is that connected to visual disturbances?
well, research is revealing this really powerful connection
Yeah.
between the gut and the brain.
Okay.
The bacteria in our gut
Right.
actually produce neurotransmitters
Wow.
that can influence brain function.
Really?
Yeah. And there's evidence suggesting that imbalances in
Oh.
the gut microbiome
Mm-hmm.
could be linked to neurological conditions,
Okay.
including VSS.
So restoring balance.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what researchers are exploring. There's
Yeah.
much to learn.
Mhm.
But this line of research holds a lot of potential
Yeah.
for innovative treatment approaches.
That's fascinating.
It is.
It seems like we're just beginning to scratch the surface
We really are.
of this complex
Your
connection.
gut-brain connection.
Yeah.
A whole new world.
Yeah, it is.
But yeah, so I think, the main takeaway here
Yeah.
is that while there's a long road ahead,
Yeah.
there's also a lot of hope.
Yeah.
Continued research, greater awareness,
Mm-hmm.
and the resilience of the VSS community
Yeah.
will drive progress in understanding and treating this condition.
That is encouraging.
It is encouraging,
Yeah.
for sure.
So let's kind of I guess, summarize
Okay.
what we've learned
Yeah.
from all this.
Okay, so key takeaways.
Yeah.
We've learned that VSS is much more common than most people realize,
Yeah.
affecting, 2% of the population.
Right.
It's a complex neurological condition
Yeah.
that goes beyond just seeing flickering dots.
Right.
It often involves other visual disturbances,
Yeah.
and it's linked to conditions like migraine and tinnitus.
So it's not just a simple visual anomaly.
No,
Yeah.
it's a multifaceted condition
Yeah.
with a significant impact
Yeah.
on people's lives.
Okay.
And while there's no cure yet,
Yeah.
research is progressing.
Yeah, we've talked about that.
We're getting a deeper understanding of the brain mechanisms involved,
Mm-hmm.
and this is leading to potential treatment options
Right.
like neuromodulation
Yeah.
and, exploring the role of the gut microbiome.
Right. So there's a lot of hope.
There's a lot of hope.
Yeah.
And importantly,
Yeah.
people with VSS are not alone.
Right.
There's a growing community
Yeah.
of patients, researchers, and advocates
Mhm.
who are working to raise awareness,
Yeah.
provide support,
Mm.
and push for more research.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think this deep dive also highlights the importance
Yeah.
of listening to patients
Mm-hmm.
and valuing their lived experiences,
Yeah.
especially when we're dealing with a condition
Right.
that's primarily diagnosed
Yeah.
based on subjective reports.
That's a really crucial takeaway.
It is, yeah.
So for our listeners who want to learn more,
Yeah.
what resources would you recommend?
Well, the Visual Snow Initiative
Okay.
is an excellent resource.
Okay.
Their website has a wealth of information,
Mm-hmm.
and they're doing great work connecting patients with researchers
Yeah.
and advocating for better understanding and treatment options.
Okay. That's a great suggestion.
Yeah.
And For anyone experiencing visual snow
Yeah.
or, other unusual visual disturbances, what's like the best course of action?
Don't hesitate to talk to your doctor. While there's still a lot we don't know about VSS,
Yeah.
the more we learn,
Right.
the closer we get to finding effective solutions.
That's reassuring to hear.
It is, yeah.
So on that note,
Yeah.
let's wrap up this deep dive into visual snow syndrome.
Okay.
We hope you found it informative, thought-provoking,
Yeah.
and most importantly, hopeful.
Hopeful. Yeah, absolutely. It's been a pleasure discussing this fascinating topic.
It had.
Remember, even in the face of complex challenges,
Yeah.
the pursuit of knowledge and understanding
Right.
is a powerful force for progress.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here,
we have.
talking about, symptoms and potential causes and the latest research on treatment options.
A lot of info.
But it's clear that VSS is complex
It really is.
and often misunderstood.
Yeah, very much so.
And one aspect I find particularly interesting
Yeah.
is the subjective nature
Right.
of it.
Yeah,
It's primarily diagnosed based on what patients report experiencing.
exactly.
There's no blood test
Yeah.
or a specific brain scan.
There's no biomarker
Yeah.
that definitively says, yep, you have VSS.
Right.
It's all based on
Oddball.
patient reports,
Yeah. Wow.
which can be challenging.
Yeah. That must make it really challenging.
It does.
For both patients and
And
doctors.
so both, yeah.
Imagine trying to explain
Yeah.
what it's like to see,
Yeah.
constant flickering dots
Right.
to someone who's never experienced it.
It's like trying to describe a color to someone who's been blind their whole life.
Yeah.
How do you even do that?
Yeah. Absolutely. It's impossible.
And it highlights the limitations of language
Totally.
when we're trying to communicate these subjective experiences,
Yep.
especially ones that are related to our senses.
For sure.
So this reliance on
Right.
patients' descriptions
Yeah.
raises some important questions.
It does.
How can we ensure that people with VSS
Are taken seriously
right?
by healthcare professionals who may not be familiar with the condition.
Especially those who might not be familiar. Yeah. That's a big one.
And then how do we use, brain imaging
Right.
responsibly?
Yeah, ethically.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to dismiss something
Yeah,
that you can't see or measure objectively.
absolutely.
And even if we see differences on a brain scan,
Right.
do those differences cause the symptoms?
Right.
Or are they the brain's way of adapting
Yeah.
to this constant visual snow?
It's like a chicken and egg thing.
Totally. It's a chicken and egg thing.
Yeah.
We don't really know.
And it's fascinating
It's
how much,
amazing.
we're still learning about the brain
Yeah, we're just scratching the surface.
and how it works.
Yeah.
I think it's really important
I agree.
to involve patients
Absolutely.
in the research process.
They're the experts
Yeah.
on their own experience.
And their insights can be so valuable
Invaluable.
in guiding research
Yes.
and developing effective treatments.
Absolutely.
Getting their perspective on what it's actually like.
Yeah, the lived experience
Yes.
is crucial.
To understanding the true impact of
Like-
VSS
For sure.
and what kind of solutions are going to actually make a real difference in their lives.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we were talking about those tinted lenses earlier.
Yeah.
Really curious
Yeah.
about how those help reduce the visual snow.
It's not entirely clear
Okay.
how they work,
Okay.
but there are a few theories.
Okay.
One is that the tinted lenses
Yeah.
are filtering out specific wavelengths of light
Okay.
that are particularly troublesome
Okay.
for people with VSS.
Okay. So certain wavelengths are worse.
Certain wavelengths, yeah, like blue light, for example.
Right. Which comes from
Which comes from screens.
Yeah.
And a lot of artificial light sources
yeah.
that can often make symptoms worse.
Okay. So it's these lenses are acting as
Like a selective barrier.
Yeah.
Blocking out the bad stuff.
yeah. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
So another theory.
Another theory
Yeah.
is that the lenses are helping to reduce
Yeah.
the overall amount of visual input.
Okay.
So it's like giving the brain a break
Okay.
from this constant stimulation
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
of the visual snow.
It's like turning down the volume on
It's
it, right?
kind of the volume on the visual world.
Yeah, and just letting your brain rest and reset.
Exactly.
And
yeah.
for some patients, that can make a huge
For
difference.
some patients, it can make a huge difference. Yeah.
Okay, so that's good.
It's good to have options.
Yeah, that there are options out there that can provide
Yeah, definitely.
at least some relief.
Some relief. Yeah.
So we've talked about treatment.
Yeah.
What about prevention?
Prevention.
Yeah.
That's a tricky one because we don't fully understand what causes VSS.
Right.
So prevention is a bit of a mystery.
Okay.
But based on what we do know,
Yeah.
there are some potential risk factors that we
Okay.
might be able to influence.
Okay, like what?
So we know that traumatic brain injury
Mhm.
can trigger VSS.
Right.
So protecting our heads,
Yeah.
wearing helmets during activities like biking
Yeah.
or playing contact sports is
Yeah.
definitely a good preventive measure.
Yeah, so like simple safety precautions
Simple safety precautions, yeah.
can really go a long way
Absolutely.
in protecting your brain
Yes.
from potential injury.
For sure.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then also, if someone chooses to use hallucinogenic drugs,
Right.
they should be aware of the risks,
Yeah.
including HPPD,
Right.
which can have symptoms similar to VSS.
Okay, so it's all about...
It's about making informed decisions
Yeah.
and understanding the potential consequences
Yeah,
of
absolutely.
our choices.
And as research into the gut microbiome progresses,
Right.
we might find that,
Yeah.
maintaining a healthy gut
Yeah.
through, diet and lifestyle choices
Mm-hmm.
could play a role in preventing neurological conditions
Potentially. Yeah.
like VSS.
It's a possibility.
That's really fascinating.
It is. The gut-brain connection is it's a whole new frontier
Yeah, it is.
of research.
It's really cool.
Yeah, it's super exciting.
So much to learn.
So much to learn.
Okay. Well,
But for now, let's recap
okay.
the key takeaways
Yeah.
from our deep dive into visual snow syndrome.
We've learned that VSS is, more common
Much more common.
than many realize.
Yeah.
Affecting about 2% of the population.
2%. That's a lot of people.
That's millions of people.
Millions, yeah.
And it's a complex neurological disorder,
It is.
not just a simple visual disturbance,
Not just visual,
often accompanied by
yeah.
other visual symptoms
Other symptoms, yeah.
and frequently linked to migraine and tinnitus.
It's all connected.
So it's really a multifaceted condition
Multifaceted, yeah.
with a significant impact on people's lives.
Big impact, for sure.
And while a cure remains elusive,
Yeah.
research is advancing.
It is.
And, we're gaining insights
yes.
into the brain mechanisms involved,
Yeah.
leading to potential treatment options like neuromodulation.
Neuromodulation, yeah.
And exploring that gut-brain connection.
The gut-brain connection, so much potential there.
So much potential.
Yeah.
And importantly, those with VSS are not alone.
No, not all.
There's a really supportive community of patients,
a great
researchers, and advocates
It's amazing.
who are pushing for greater awareness and research funding.
Absolutely. The advocacy is so important.
And we've also really highlighted the need to listen to patients.
Yes.
And value their experiences.
Their lived experience is so crucial.
Yeah, especially with a condition like this that is diagnosed primarily through
Right.
subjective reports.
Subjective reports, yeah.
Yeah, so for listeners wanting to delve deeper into VSS,
Yeah.
what resources would you recommend?
I would definitely recommend the Visual Snow Initiative.
Okay.
Their website has a wealth of information.
Okay.
And they're really actively connecting patients with researchers.
Yeah.
And advocating for better understanding and treatment.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, check them out.
And for those experiencing, visual snow or other unusual visual disturbances,
Yeah,
what should they do?
talk to your doctor.
Talk to your doctor.
Yeah, it's important to get checked out.
Okay.
Because while much about VSS remains unknown, the more we learn, the closer we are to finding effective solutions.
That's a good message.
It is a good message of hope.
Of hope, yeah. So thank you for joining us
Absolutely.
on this deep dive into visual snow syndrome.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you found it informative and, above all, hopeful.
Hopeful, for sure.
As always, thank you to the listener for providing us with all these incredible sources.
Yes, thank you.
And for, really giving us the opportunity to learn and grow
Always learning.
and explore these fascinating topics.
Yeah, it's great.
So until next time,
Until next time,
stay curious.
stay curious.